Hey guys, I'm back, and I think I'm back for the long run. I figured out a workflow that allows me to basically make 10 videos per day. I have an AI assistant now that does most of the work for me. So every single video will be a podcast based on an article that I've come across online that I find interesting relating to either geopolitics, war, foreign policy, stuff like that, stuff that you're used to for me. And today's article is about strategic sequencing, the idea that you would want to structure or sequence conflicts in a way where you pause other conflicts to focus resources on your main adversary before moving on to the next one, instead of trying to fight everyone at the same time. I thought it was I think it's a genius idea. The article that I'll be linking again in the description is really good. You should go ahead and read it after watching this video. The writer, Wes Mitchell, is Assistant Secretary of Eurasian Affairs. He's basically head of the boss of about 50 ambassadors in Europe, in the EU, outside of the EU, in the Balkans, Russia, Turkey, the whole region. He's their boss, basically, of the ambassadors, American ambassadors. He's an American diplomat. And he basically just wrote this article about the idea of strategic sequencing, which is millennia old. He didn't invent the idea, but he wrote an interesting piece about it. So enjoy the podcast. I'll be uploading a new podcast every single day. See you in the next one.
All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really bold, maybe even controversial idea for America's foreign policy. It comes from A. Wes Mitchell, a former top diplomat who basically says the U.S. is spread way too thin and needs a totally new playbook for dealing with its biggest rivals. So let's get into it and break down this high-stakes proposal. Here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the huge challenge the U.S. is up against, this overextension problem. Then we'll unpack the proposed solution, a pretty clever strategy called strategic sequencing. After that, we'll see how the plan would work in the real world, starting with Iran and then Russia. And finally, we'll get to the ultimate goal, the real reason for this whole grand strategy: China. So let's start with the fundamental problem here. The core argument is, well, pretty simple. The United States is trying to deal with too many major crises in too many places at the same time, and it's stretching its power, both military and diplomatic, right to the breaking point. You know, in strategy circles, they actually have a name for this. They call it the simultaneity problem. And I think a good way to picture it is, imagine you're a chess grandmaster, but you have to play 3 other grandmasters all at the same time on 3 different boards. That's the strategic nightmare we're talking about, being ready for a major conflict in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, all at once. And this is the part that's absolutely crucial. This isn't just some theory from a think tank. It's basically an official admission. The US government, in its own defense strategy documents, has said flat out that it can really only handle one major war at a time, and its number one priority has to be China. Just that one fact forces some incredibly tough choices. So, if you can't fight everybody at once, what do you do? That's the million-dollar question, right? Well, this proposal offers an answer, and it's called strategic sequencing. It's a disciplined, step-by-step plan to tackle threats one by one, instead of all at the same time. And you might be asking, why now? What's the trigger? Well, the author argues that Iran's recently weakened position on the world stage has created what he calls a heretofore unimaginable opportunity. A bit of a mouthful, but what it really means is a rare chance for the US to hit the reset button on its entire global strategy. Okay, so let's get a clear definition of strategic sequencing. Think of it like strategic triage on a global scale. Instead of trying to fight a war on 3 fronts, you deliberately pick your battles. The whole idea is to neutralize the smaller, more manageable threats first. That way, you can free up all of your resources, all of your attention for the main event. Now, to make this idea more concrete, the article points to Israel as a real-world case study. For decades, right, Israel has been surrounded by hostile neighbors. But by using this clever mix of military action and smart diplomacy, it dealt with threats one by one. It kept its enemies from all ganging up at once, which then let Israel isolate its biggest threat and focus its power right where it was needed most. But, and this is a really important distinction, the proposal isn't saying the US should just copy and paste Israel's playbook. No. While Israel often led with military force, this idea actually flips the script for America. It says the US should lead with creative diplomacy and just keep its overwhelming military might in its back pocket as the ultimate guarantee. It's a diplomacy-first approach. Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts. How would this actually work? The sequence kicks off in the Middle East with Iran, and then it pivots to Europe to deal with Russia. And the key thing to remember here is the goal isn't to solve these crises for good. It's to stabilize them, to essentially put them on hold. So, step 1, the Middle East. The thinking here is that with Iran in a less powerful position, there's a window of opportunity, a chance for the US to help reshape the region's security without getting sucked into another forever war. So here's the diplomatic to-do list. And notice what this plan specifically avoids, trying to create regime change in Iran. Nope. The focus is much narrower. Just get rid of their nuclear capabilities. At the same time, the US would push to finalize peace deals between key players like Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. The endgame? A region that's stable enough to police itself, which would finally let America start bringing its troops home. All right, so once the Middle East is on a more stable footing, the playbook says it's time to pivot. Next stop, Europe. The idea is that with Iran less able to help Russia and with European allies finally stepping up, the US suddenly has a lot more leverage to bring Russia to the negotiating table. And the goal for Europe, according to this plan, is brutally pragmatic. We're not talking about some grand, permanent peace treaty for Ukraine. Not right away. We're talking about locking in a temporary ceasefire. And why? To buy time. Precious time for European allies to rearm and build up their own militaries, which is really the only thing that can deter Moscow in the long run. And this quote right here, it just nails the core logic of the whole thing. This is not about the US trying to solve every problem in the world. It's about crisis management. The analogy I like is it's like putting these really complex, messy problems into a long-term parking garage. You haven't junked the car, but it's not blocking traffic anymore. And that lets you deal with the 5-alarm fire happening right in front of you. So, you park the crisis in the Middle East, you park the crisis in Europe, and you might be asking yourself, why? Why go through all this trouble? Well, it all comes down to one single reason: to let the United States turn its full, undivided attention and power toward Asia, and specifically toward China. This right here is the payoff. This is the whole point. You can literally see the entire strategy in this one visual. You carefully draw down your military assets, your strategic focus, your top-level political capital from the Middle East and Europe, so you can surge all of it into the Pacific. So what does that actually get you on the ground? Well, according to the proposal, it means a lot. It means more American warships in the Pacific, which acts as a powerful deterrent against a potential invasion of Taiwan. It means America's diplomats have a much stronger hand when they sit down to negotiate with Beijing. And critically, it sends a powerful message to allies like Japan and South Korea that America's security guarantees are rock solid. But, and this is a really important reality check from the author, this whole sequencing strategy, it isn't a permanent solution. It's not a silver bullet. He presents it as America's best bet for right now, a kind of temporary bridge to get through this dangerous period. But it's only a bridge, one that's needed until the country can rebuild its industrial base to the point where it can handle multiple threats again. And so that really leaves us with the big, provocative question at the very heart of this strategy. Can a global superpower truly park a major international crisis? Or is that just a clever way of kicking a very, very dangerous can down the road, maybe allowing these problems to get even worse over time? That right there is the billion-dollar gamble of strategic sequencing.